You're alone in the morgue at night. It's completely silent. Then you hear a tapping sound, and the lid of an empty coffin slowly starts to creak open, and inside, there's a body. So, who opened it? This is a story about how my belief that death is the end was completely shattered. I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've seen everything related to death. I know every detail. The coldness of the bodies, their silence, those empty stares. Over time you get used to it. You even develop that clinical detachment required for the job. Everything has an explanation. Everything is based on scientific data. At least that's what I thought. The morgue, for me, was the last bastion of science. The place where life ended, and only the body remained. But some nights, that fortress gets shaken. And on that particular night, my fortress was completely demolished. This is Marrow Creek Funeral Home. It's an old building, built in the early part of the last century. Red brick, white trim. It's got a small chapel out front, and in the back, there's the prep room where I spend most of my time, and the cold storage unit. I usually work nights. Fewer distractions, fewer visitors. Just me, my instruments, and the low hum of the embalming machine. That night was no different. It was a Thursday night, already dark, with a thin drizzle outside. There was a lot of work to do. It was a little past midnight. I was finishing up the last case. His name was Arthur Jenkins. He was in his 70s, passed away peacefully in his sleep. No family. There was no obvious trauma to his body, just the calm stillness that comes with old age and peace. As I worked, my little radio played classical music. That's my routine. The building was completely silent otherwise, just the hum of the machine and the sound of my movements. I was focused. Everything was as it should be. Arthur was on the prep table, a faint smile on his face. Then I heard that sound. It wasn't loud, not dramatic at all. It was just deliberate. A slow, dragging tap, like someone shuffling their feet. This sound was coming from the back, from the cold storage. I froze for a moment, my hands suspended in the air. The music was still playing. The sound didn't come again immediately. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the compressor stuttered. Maybe a shift in air pressure. You hear all sorts of weird noises in old buildings when they're quiet. Still, I felt something. A pause inside me. Something ancient. Perhaps some primal instinct. A whispering apprehension. I set the mop aside and walked down the hall towards the cold storage unit. My boots echoed on the floor, too loud, too sharp in the pervasive silence. I unlocked the cold room door. The heavy door wheezed open with a sigh, releasing a blast of icy air. I stepped inside. The storage drawers lined the walls in perfect symmetry. Stainless steel, clean, polished. I had checked all of them before I started mopping. Every single one had been shut, bolted, and they still were. But then it came again. Shuff, shuff, a dragging sound, very close, coming from my left. Then it stopped. I checked the drawers one by one, top to bottom, row by row, all sealed, all tagged, no signs of movement, no frost shifting, no condensation drops. No gurneys nearby that could have rolled. Nothing. The room was still, cold, and exactly as it should be. But then a single thud behind me. I turned slowly. One of the drawers, the second from the bottom, drawer B7, had no tag. That was odd. I always tagged them. I squatted down, checked the lock. It was sealed. The deadbolt firm. I ran my gloved fingers across the edge. cold. No sign of disturbance. No sound. But I could feel something. A weight. Not from the drawer itself, but from the air. That kind of pressure you feel in your ears before a thunderstorm. I stood up, backed away. The shuffling had stopped, but the stillness that replaced it wasn't the normal quiet I'd come to know. It was a heavy kind of silence, like something was waiting for me to leave. So I did. I walked out slowly, closed the cold room, and bolted it. I went back to mopping, mechanical, purposeful. My boots left faint squeaks over the floor I'd already cleaned. I didn't go back to that drawer that night. In the morning I checked the tag logs. Drawer B7 was recorded as empty. That was impossible. We never leave drawers untagged, and empty drawers aren't sealed. I reviewed the security footage. The camera angle doesn't cover the inside of the cold room. Privacy policy. But the timestamp showed the door was never opened after I'd entered. No one went in. No one came out. We reopened B7 later that day during inspection. It was empty. Still sealed. Still cold. No signs of tampering. Now every so often when I'm mopping the back hall after hours, I hear it again. Just once. A single shuffle, like bare feet on tile, always faint, always near drawer. B7. I've worked in this building long enough to know when something is out of place. I don't scare easily, and I don't believe in theatrics. But I do believe in paying attention. So I listen, and I never leave B7 unattended. They brought her in on a Thursday morning, mid-60s, no immediate family, found by a neighbor after 3 days. Her name was Eleanor Jameson. No signs of trauma, no foul play, just the slow kind of passing that happens when people grow old alone. Her utilities were paid. Mail was still being delivered. From the outside, everything looked normal. But inside the house, the silence had settled for too long. I'd been doing this job long enough to know what to expect in cases like that. Skin beginning to slip, mild bloat, a slight odor depending on room temperature. But she'd gone relatively peacefully, head tilted toward the window, eyes closed. There was even a glass of water next to her recliner. She may have known. I began the standard prep just after 9 p.m. I like to work at night. Fewer distractions, fewer visitors. Just me, my instruments, and the quiet hum of the embalming pump. Eleanor was on the table. I'd already made the arterial incision and started the injection. I remember thinking how small she seemed. Her hands were folded over her chest, her hair pinned back with care. She reminded me of the women from church when I was a boy, the ones who brought butterscotch and sat in the second pew. The room was still. I was focused, that kind of tunnel vision that comes when you're in the rhythm of your work. And then I noticed something in the corner of my eye. Movement, but not fast, not sharp. A stillness, but out of place. I looked up. 3 figures, vague, shadowed, standing side by side along the wall at the far end of the prep room, behind the tray carts and the stainless shelving. They weren't doing anything, just standing, watching her. At first I thought maybe I'd left the door open and someone had come in. An assistant, a driver, maybe even the director doing his nightly rounds. But the door was shut. Locked, in fact. I always lock it when I work alone. And here's the thing. They weren't distinct like people. You couldn't see faces, couldn't see clothes. Just outlines, dark, motionless. But I could feel their weight in the room. I didn't move. I didn't stop the pump. I just stood there with my hand on the clamp and tried to breathe through it. Because in that moment, I understood without any panic or hysteria, that they were not there for me. They were looking at her, not in mourning, not weeping. It was their posture, the way they were positioned like family at a visitation, like siblings gathered around a casket. Heads slightly bowed, a presence, not a performance. And then, after maybe 30 seconds, maybe more, one of them seemed to lean slightly forward. I didn't hear anything, no whisper, no breath. But there was a kind of stillness in the air, like a final word had been spoken. Then they were gone. No dramatic exit, no vanishing act, just no longer there. Like the room had exhaled and returned to normal. I finished the embalming. I dressed her later that night in a blue dress with white pearls. No family requested a viewing, but I placed a rose beside her hand before she went into the casket. I still don't know who they were. Family, friends, spirits, echoes. But I do know this. Eleanor didn't leave this world alone. Whatever waited for her in that dark room was waiting with familiarity. And sometimes that's the best we can hope for. I've worked this job for over 27 years, long enough to know the difference between a creaky pipe and something truly out of place. Ours is not a profession given to superstition. We work with facts, blood type, time of death, the precise angle of an incision. So when I tell you what happened, I want you to understand, I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm only telling you what happened. The man had died in a car crash just outside of town. I remember the call came in early evening, overcast, rain slipping down the window in streaks. The paramedic said he died on impact. His seatbelt snapped, the windshield spidered with a skull print. The body arrived within hours. He was in his early 40s, lean, not much damage to the face. His name was Samuel Harper. It wasn't long before I heard the first comments about him. "That's the guy who used to whistle," one of the transport staff said while unloading the gurney. "Always had the same tune. Annoying, actually. That sort of thing doesn't usually stick with me, but he was the last case on a Thursday, and that night I was the only one in the building. It happens. We stagger shifts to cut down on overhead. I'd planned to finish his prep before midnight. He was already on the table. I'd cleaned the wound at the back of his head, sutured where needed. Nothing unusual. As I worked, I played my usual background station on the small speaker in the corner. Classical, mostly. Something soft. The building was silent otherwise. No movement, no motion detectors tripped. It was just me and him. Then I heard it. It wasn't loud. It came from the hallway leading to the prep room. A short, clear whistle. 4 notes. 2 high, 1 low, and back up. Not random, a little shaky, but deliberate. Human. I froze, my hands still gloved, scalpel midair. The hallway was empty. I could see it from where I stood. The sound hadn't come from the speaker. I had unplugged it when the battery started dying. I checked my phone. Nothing playing. I walked to the doorway and looked out. Still nothing. I'm not the type to panic, but my heart was up in my throat. I stood there for maybe a minute, waiting, listening. Then the tune repeated. 4 notes, same pitch, same rhythm. A little farther down the hallway now, toward the refrigeration unit. I've dealt with grieving families, decaying bodies, even the occasional break-in, but I'd never experienced anything like that. I walked the hall slowly, step by step. No footsteps but mine. The building, as always, smelled faintly of bleach and steel, but the air felt changed. Not colder, just heavier, like something was occupying space I couldn't see. I checked the refrigeration room. Empty, except for the bodies. All zipped, all undisturbed. No signs of movement. No sign of anyone having entered or left. Back in the prep room, I sat down. I didn't want to call anyone. What would I say? I think I heard someone whistle in a locked building. So I sat there and waited. I don't know why, but I opened Samuel Harper's personal effects. It's not protocol, but something pushed me toward it. Just keys, a wallet, a pack of chewing gum, and a receipt from a diner down on 4th. Scrawled at the bottom, under the total, was something the waitress must have added. "You and that damn tune. I'll be humming it all night again." I left the building around 1:30 a.m. I didn't hear the whistle again that night. But here's the strange thing. For the next 3 evenings, at roughly the same time, between midnight and 1 a.m., the whistle returned. Always just a few notes. Always the same pattern. Always in the hallway near the prep room. I never saw anything. Never found a source. And after we cremated the body the following week, the sound stopped. They tell you when you start working in a mortuary that the dead are silent. And for the most part, that's true. But silence has textures, depths, and sometimes, when you've spent too long among the still, you notice the things that move. Hello, friends. Thank you all for joining me on this chilling journey. Your support means everything to me, and I absolutely love reading your reactions and personal experiences in the comments section. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat or sent shivers down your spine, please make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing for more haunting tales. Have you ever experienced anything similar to this, or perhaps you have your own unexplainable story to share? I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Each of your stories adds another fascinating layer to our growing community of horror enthusiasts. And if you think someone else might enjoy a good scare, don't forget to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if you dare.